85-year-old Navy veteran bullied at a gas station. Then he made a call that changed everything. Imagine standing alone, the weight of years pressing down like a heavy coat. The world feels colder, more indifferent, with every passing moment. A single moment can change everything. Sometimes, it's the smallest acts of kindness that ignite the greatest courage. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel. Your subscription means everything to us and is the only way to ensure that the stories of these brave individuals, who often remain unheard, reach a larger audience. Your support helps us continue our work, so please subscribe now. The gas station hummed with the mundane rhythm of everyday life. Cars rolled in and out, their tires crunching on gravel, while the smell of gasoline lingered in the air. An old man shuffled forward, his frail frame draped in a faded navy jacket. A testament to his decades of service. His eyes, though weary, held a spark of determination. But today that spark was dimming. A group of younger men loitered nearby, their laughter too loud, their words laced with mockery. They glanced at him, their smirks growing wider, as if they were predators sizing up their prey. The old soldier felt the heat of humiliation wash over him, a stark contrast to the pride he once wore like a badge. He stood at the pump. The nozzle trembling in his hand, the minutes stretching into an eternity. Memories of courage flooded his mind, battles fought, comrades lost, and sacrifices made. Yet here he was, reduced to a target for ridicule, his heart racing with a mix of anger and sadness. In that moment, he could have turned away, allowed the cruelty to wash over him like the rain that now began to fall. But instead he felt something shift within him. He reached for his phone. Trembling fingers dialing a number that would change everything. The rain fell harder, drumming against the pavement, and the laughter faded into the background. A voice answered on the other end, and he inhaled deeply, ready to reclaim his dignity. The call he made was not just for help, it was a declaration that he would not be silenced. As he spoke, a sense of resolve filled him. The world may have tried to break him. But he was more than just an old man at a gas station. He was a veteran, a survivor, and today he was ready to stand tall once more. Walter's voice trembled as he finished his call, but the resolve in his heart burned brighter than ever. The rain continued to fall, each drop washing away not just the humiliation of the moment, but also igniting a spark of hope. He could hear the distant rumble of engines approaching, a sound that resonated like a heartbeat, growing louder with each passing second. As he stood there, surrounded by the sound of rain and fading laughter, the first of his fellow veterans arrived. It was Sergeant Bill Thompson, a burly man with a thick beard and an even thicker sense of camaraderie. Bill stepped out of his truck, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. Without a word, he marched over, his boots splashing through puddles as he approached Walter, who felt an unfamiliar sense of safety wash over him. "Walter, what happened here?" Bill's voice boomed, cutting through the drumming rain. He placed a strong hand on Walter's shoulder, grounding him in the moment. "They were just mocking me," Walter replied, his voice barely above a whisper, but the anger began to seep through. "For my age. For my service." Bill's demeanor shifted. His eyes darkened with a protective fire. "Not on my watch, they won't. Let's show them what respect looks like." He turned and hollered to the parking lot, "Hey you punks! You think it's funny to mess with a veteran? Come on over here." The laughter from the group dissipated, replaced by confused glances. One of the younger men, a wiry figure with a baseball cap, stepped forward, a sneer plastered across his face. "What are you gonna do about it, old man?" Bill took a step closer, his presence radiating authority. "What I'm going to do is remind you what it means to serve. You think you're tough? Let's see how tough you are when you're facing a whole line of veterans." As if on cue, the sound of engines revving filled the air, and more vehicles began to pull into the gas station. One by one, veterans emerged, some wearing their military uniforms, others donning hats adorned with insignias from various branches of the armed forces. There was Peter, a wiry Air Force veteran with bright blue eyes, and Maria, a no-nonsense Marine with a fierce demeanor. They all knew Walter, respected him, and were ready to stand by his side. The group began to gather around Walter and Bill, forming a protective wall against the onlookers. The younger men, now faced with a sea of veterans, exchanged nervous glances. The laughter that had once filled the air faded into an uncomfortable silence. "Is this how you treat those who fought for your freedom?" Maria shouted, her voice strong and unwavering. "You think you're tough? You're just a bunch of cowards hiding behind your jokes." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd of veterans. They were united, their collective presence charged with a sense of purpose. Walter could feel the warmth of their solidarity enveloping him. He was no longer alone. Just then a local news van pulled into the station. Its logo emblazoned on the side. The reporter, a woman with sharp features and a microphone in hand, stepped out and approached the gathering. "What's happening here?" she asked, her curiosity piqued as she caught sight of the tension in the air. Bill turned to her, his voice steady. "We're here to stand up for our brother Walter. He was bullied by a group of disrespectful young men. We're not going to let this go unnoticed." The reporter's eyes widened, and she quickly began filming. "This is a story worth sharing. We need to bring attention to the treatment of our veterans." Walter's heart raced as he realized the implications of this moment. This was not just about him, it was about all veterans who had faced ridicule and disrespect. The tension in the air shifted, transforming into a rallying cry. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to comment from where you are hearing this amazing story. The younger men, now visibly shaken, stepped back, the bravado draining from their expressions. They were no longer the hunters, they had become the hunted. Walter straightened his posture, feeling the energy of the gathering behind him. It was time to reclaim his dignity. "Listen up," he called out, his voice rising above the murmurs. "I fought for this country, for the freedom you enjoy. I may be old, but I am not weak. Respect is earned, not taken away. And if you can't show respect to those who served, then you don't deserve the freedom you flaunt." The crowd erupted in cheers, the sound echoing against the now darkened sky. Walter's words hung in the air, a powerful reminder of sacrifice and duty. He felt a surge of strength, bolstered by the veterans who stood beside him, each one a testament to resilience. As the rain continued to fall, washing away remnants of the past, Walter realized this moment was not just a turning point in his life, but a call to action for others. It was a reminder that unity could conquer cruelty, that respect could outshine mockery. In the coming days, the story would spread far beyond the gas station, igniting conversations about the treatment of veterans across the nation. Walter had become a symbol not just of resilience, but of a newfound courage that resonated deeply within the hearts of many. And for the young men who had once laughed, they would learn a lesson they would never forget, that respect is a bridge, not a wall, and it takes courage to cross it. As the cheers faded, Walter stood tall, a beacon of dignity amidst the chaos. But just as the atmosphere began to shift from tension to triumph, a figure emerged from the shadows of the gas station. It was a woman, perhaps in her late 20s, with fiery red hair and a determined expression. She rushed towards the gathering, her eyes wide with concern. "Stop. Please everyone stop," she shouted, her voice slicing through the applause like a knife. The crowd fell silent, confusion rippling through the veterans and onlookers alike. Walter squinted, trying to understand the intrusion. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty churning in his stomach. The woman halted in front of him, breathing heavily. "My name is Emily. I need to explain something." She glanced nervously at the younger men who had taunted Walter. "You don't know the whole story." "What do you mean?" Maria challenged, stepping forward with a fierce glare. What could possibly justify their actions? Emily looked around, her expression shifting from fear to determination. "Because I'm one of them. I used to think like those guys, until I learned the truth. You see, my father was a veteran, a proud soldier who fought in Vietnam. He came home a different man, and I never understood what he went through." Walter felt a knot form in his stomach. He had seen so many young people become estranged from their veterans, failing to grasp the sacrifices made for their freedom. And Emily swallowed hard, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He struggled with PTSD. He was broken by the war, and I grew up resenting him for it. I didn't understand what he had seen, what he had done to protect me. I thought he was weak, just like those guys over there think of you." Walter's heart ached as he listened. He could see the pain in her eyes, the realization dawning upon her. "What happened next?" he asked gently, wanting to draw out her story. She took a deep breath, her gaze shifting to the ground. "I distanced myself from him, but then one day he took his life. I was left with nothing but regret. It was only then that I started to understand the weight of his sacrifice. I realized that those jokes, that laughter, it's just ignorance. I wanted to come here today to apologize, to stand up and say that not everyone feels this way." The young men who had once laughed at Walter shifted uneasily, their bravado waning. One of them, the wiry figure in the baseball cap, looked at Emily with newfound understanding. "You mean, you used to think like us?" he asked, his voice lacking its former bravado. "Yes," Emily admitted, her voice trembling. "But I learned, I learned that we need to listen, to honor those who've served. I wish I could turn back time and tell my father that I loved him, that I understood. Walter felt a swell of empathy for her, recognizing the shared pain of loss and understanding. We are all learning, Emily, he said softly. It's never too late to change. Bill stepped forward, his formidable presence softened by the gravity of her confession. You did the right thing by coming here. Acknowledging our mistakes is the first step towards healing. But it's not just your journey, it's theirs too. He gestured toward the younger men who stood frozen, caught between shame and realization. Emily turned to them, her eyes pleading. You can change. You can choose to respect those who fought for your freedom. You can choose to learn from this moment instead of repeating the mistakes of the past. The wiry man nodded slowly as if awakening from a trance. I never thought about it like that, he murmured, glancing at Walter. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to hurt you. Walter looked at him, searching for sincerity in his eyes. Apologies are a start, but actions speak louder. It's about how you treat people moving forward. A silence settled over the gas station as the weight of Emily's revelation hung in the air, transforming the atmosphere from confrontation to contemplation. The crowd began to process this unexpected twist in the narrative, a moment where understanding bridged the gap between generations. Let's not just stand here, Maria finally said, breaking the silence. Let's turn this into something powerful. Why don't we organize a community event, a day dedicated to honoring veterans and educating the youth about the sacrifices made for their freedoms? The crowd erupted with agreement, the energy shifting from defensive to proactive. Walter felt a sense of hope bubbling within him. This was more than just a moment of confrontation, it was a turning point. A chance for connection, for healing, and for change. Emily smiled through her tears, grateful for the opportunity to atone for her past. I'll help organize it, she declared. I want to share my father's story, to show that there's strength in vulnerability. Walter nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Let's not just honor those who served. Let's create a community that understands and respects their sacrifices. This is our chance to make a difference. As the rain began to lighten, the group stood united, their hearts intertwined by shared stories and newfound understanding. The young men looked at Walter with respect, their previous mockery replaced by a desire to learn and grow. This moment, born out of adversity, promised to ripple through the community, creating conversations that would echo long after they left the gas station. Walter had not only reclaimed his dignity, but he had also ignited a movement that would ensure the stories of veterans like him would be heard, respected, and never forgotten. The young men, now a part of this newfound purpose, pledged to change their ways. They would stand by Walter and the other veterans not as bullies, but as allies in a quest for understanding. Their solidarity palpable in the air. The young men who had once laughed, now filled with remorse, watched in silence as the atmosphere shifted from tension to something profound, a moment of healing and understanding. Emily, still visibly shaken but resolute, turned to the group. This isn't just about today. It's about changing the narrative, about teaching respect to the next generation. Her voice resonated with conviction, inspiring those around her to nod in agreement. Walter felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He had not only regained his dignity, but he had also sparked a movement, one that could ripple through the community. Let's make sure this moment doesn't fade away, he said, addressing both the veterans and the younger men. We have a chance to educate, to bring awareness to the struggles faced by veterans. We can start here today. Bill stepped forward, his presence commanding yet warm. What if we organize a community event? A day where veterans can share their stories, and young people can learn about the sacrifices made for their freedom. His idea ignited hope among the gathered crowd. The veterans cheered in agreement, their voices rising in unison. Walter looked over at the young men, who stood with their heads bowed in reflection. You can be part of this too, he said, his voice steady. You have an opportunity to learn, to change your perspective. And to show respect. The wiry young man who had once sneered at Walter stepped forward, his expression sincere. I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't understand. I want to help. He looked at Walter, sincerity shining in his eyes. What can I do? Walter smiled gently, impressed by the shift in his demeanor. Come to our event. Listen to our stories and share your own. A conversation can change everything. As plans for the event began to take shape, the crowd buzzed with excitement. Emily took charge, coordinating the logistics and reaching out to local businesses for support. The sense of community was palpable. People were coming together, united by a common goal. Days turned into weeks and the event drew closer. Flyers were posted, social media buzzed with anticipation, and the community rallied behind the cause. Walter felt a renewed sense of purpose as he prepared to share his story, not just as a veteran, but as a man who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. On the day of the event, the gas station transformed into a hub of activity. Tables were set up, banners hung proudly, and a stage was constructed. Veterans from all branches of the military shared their experiences, the crowd listening intently, hearts and minds opening to the realities of service. Walter took his place at the podium, feeling the weight of countless stories behind him. I stand here today not just as a veteran, but as a reminder that every person who wears a uniform has a story worth telling. I want you to understand that respect is not given, it is earned through understanding and empathy. The audience erupted into applause, and Walter could see the young men from that fateful day in the crowd, listening intently, their expressions filled with newfound respect. As the event continued, Emily shared her own story. A powerful testament to the journey of understanding and healing. My father was a soldier and he fought for our freedoms. I was ignorant to his struggles, but today I stand here to honor him and all veterans. We must listen, we must learn, and we must respect those who serve. Her words resonated deeply, stirring emotions in everyone present. The event was more than just a gathering, it was a movement towards change, a commitment to transform ignorance into understanding. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the gathering, Walter felt an overwhelming sense of completion. This was not just a resolution for him, but for the entire community. People were talking, sharing, and most importantly, listening. As the event came to a close, Walter addressed the crowd one last time. Let this be the beginning of a new chapter, one where respect and understanding reign. Let's not forget the lessons learned here today. Together, we can ensure that our veterans are honored, not just in words but in actions. The crowd erupted in cheers, a powerful wave of unity washing over them. In that moment, Walter understood that the laughter of a few could never overshadow the strength of a community united for a cause greater than themselves. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. As the community dispersed, Walter felt a sense of hope for the future. The young men who had once bullied him were now allies, committed to honoring the sacrifices of veterans. And in that transformative moment, Walter Chambers, the 85-year-old Navy veteran, had become more than just a symbol of resilience. He had become a catalyst for change, a living testament to the power of understanding, empathy, and respect. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but Walter knew that together, they had forged a new path, one filled with compassion, friendship, and a promise to never forget the sacrifices made for freedom.